Moving along. Teachers provide the Torah knowledge, but to whom? In 1986, two groups of young men left Yeshivas Ner Yisrael to start Kollel, one in Atlanta, Georgia, one in San Diego, California. The Kollel in Atlanta is still going strong today, has been a huge part of creating a thriving Jewish community, probably one of the fastest growing communities in America. The Kollel in San Diego lasted 2 years and closed down. One of the members of the Atlanta Kollel, who knew both Kollelim very well when they left, it also happens to be my father, he told me that it wasn't the caliber of the guys that went that made the difference between the Kollel in Atlanta being successful and the one in San Diego not. He said, Atlanta's in the Bible Belt. People in the Bible Belt were very receptive to the message of the Kollel. The surf's up attitude of San Diego didn't exactly lend itself to inspiration through Torah learning. You could have the greatest teachers in the world, but without the greatest students, you won't get anywhere. In our community, we are blessed with people who love learning and growing. This is evident when you walk in the shul at 5:30 in the morning and people are learning. And in the evening, the Beis Medrash is still full. Just this past Shabbos, I was moved. The vibrant Beis Medrash of a Shabbos Seder, I actually walked over to Rabbi Rothstein and I said, "Are you shepping nachas?" We can't talk about students without highlighting the tremendous successes of Rabbi Cohen, Rabbi Aryeh Cohen. He's had with the J-Way program. I was recently talking to a well-known campus rabbi from a very large Jewish community, and you know who I'm talking about, who expressed how it's nearly impossible these days, and this is a very successful person in what he does. He said it's nearly impossible these days to have college students come for a Shabbos. Anyone who knows Rabbi Cohen even slightly, and has seen even a sliver of the hundreds of lives that he's touched, knows that somehow he continues to buck the trend, even as it seems to be getting harder and harder to inspire today's youth. Yesher Koach, Rabbi Cohen. The Torah student doesn't just learn with his mind. The Torah student learns with their heart, opening up themselves to internalize the words and the messages of what they're learning. When we talk about advancement in Torah study, we use the word steiging, which means to grow. For the Torah student doesn't just get smarter, he becomes a bigger person. There's one person in this room who exemplifies the true Torah student that we are recognizing tonight, Dr. Georgiy Teverovskiy. Georgiy, as we call him, by the way, the doctor is a PhD from MIT, has truly taken Torah learning to heart. We've seen it right before our eyes. This is a person who the more he learns, the more he grows. Learning Torah for Georgiy has defined him in many ways. There is no better way to share this inspiration than to have Georgiy tell his story himself. Georgiy, it's all yours.
Have anything prepared? Hold on. A little trick I learned from Rabbi Cohen. Sorry, my voice is a little shot. So November 2012, I get invited for an interview at 3M. And I kind of knew 3M existed. They made Scotch guards, Scotch tape, all these wonderful things. But it's in Minnesota. What's Minnesota? I grew up in Brooklyn. Like, I spent 90% of my life in Brooklyn. I thought Boston was upstate New York until I actually went there. Like, oh, wait, it's Massachusetts? Looked at the map. It's really far up north. I don't know. Do Jews live in the north? We don't exactly come from a cold climate. I mean, we ended up there in Russia, but it doesn't always work. So I went to a rabbi that was close to it at MIT, Rabbi Mendy Gould, and asked him, do Jews live in Minnesota? I don't know. Let me find out. Sure enough, a couple of days later, he calls me and said, actually, I do know somebody, Rabbi Aryeh Cohen. And he gives me his contact information and says, call him. So I did. He talked to me a little bit about the community. Yes, Jews do live here, and they live in St. Louis Park. Great. I can move here. I can be comfortable moving to Minnesota. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not as if I kept anything, but I grew up around Jews, and it was important for me to continue to be around Jews. So, moved to Minnesota. This is already June 2013. My first job was in Minnesota, 9 o'clock in the morning. I get a phone call. It's Saturday morning. It's my mother. What are you doing? What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm sleeping. It's 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. Like, come on. Why are you picking up the phone? What do you mean, why am I picking it up? Why are you calling me then? Like, it's Shabbos. Why are you picking up the phone? Wait, what? Why aren't you in shul? Okay, I'm confused here. What? Since when do you care if I go to shul or not? It's not like I ever went before. Not really. Like, I don't care what you're doing. Next Shabbos, you better be in shul. You're not picking up the phone next time. Okay, fine. You listen to your mother. It's dangerous not to. So, called Rabbi Cohen, and sure enough, he invited me over that very next Shabbos. And in retrospect, it makes sense that my mother would do something like that. She would tell me stories about my great-grandmother, who grew up religious up until World War II, scattered us all across the face of Russia. And she would write, not Twitter, not text, not email. She'd actually write letters to Kiev to find out when is Purim. So that way she could count to Pesach. So she would know exactly when to make matzah. And making matzah then is not like making matzah now. That could have been very, very dangerous. So she made it in secret, and she had to hide it up on the high shelves. And my mother would recall fondly as she heard the matzah crinkle softly in the night, and they would eat it in secret on Pesach. My grandfather, my mother's father, he once went to renew his passport, and for Russian passports, you're given a nationality. I am a Jew, I'm not Russian. So my grandfather receives his new passport and says Russian. He gets very confused, goes to the passport office, goes to the administrator, this nice big giant Russian guy, and tells him, this is wrong. I'm not Russian, I'm a Jew. You need to change this. What do you mean I need to change this? I just did you a favor. Like, you should be happy. People have been begging me to do this for years. I don't care. I'm a Jew, first and foremost. So my first Shabbos in Minneapolis, real Shabbos, the first one doesn't really count. 7 o'clock, Rabbi Cohen calls me, okay, come on, we're Mincha starting, we have to go. So around 7:15, I show up. Jewish time, whatever, plus minus. And it was a whole other experience. As soon as I walked into shul, I was greeted by, I can't even recall how many people. Everyone wanted to say hi. Everybody wanted to meet this new person that came to shul, that came for Shabbos. And it was a wonderful thing, and certainly not something that I've ever experienced back in Brooklyn. And then I was introduced to the Kollel. And as soon as I walked in, as soon as I walked through those doors, I could feel there's something else in the air. And it wasn't just the cholent. You could feel the presence, the light of the Torah just emanating through and permeating the walls of the entire building. I was asked if I would be interested in taking part in Partisan Torah. Sure. And then one night turned into 2, then 3, and I noticed something changing inside of me. I noticed that I became much more reluctant to eat out. I became much more reluctant to break Shabbos. And everything in life just improved. Work went much easier. My relationships with other people were much, much better. It was a very interesting phenomenon, and it makes perfect sense. The Torah uplifts you. It takes you and helps you grow. So here's the situation. You have a Jew from the Soviet Union who grew up with nothing, went to Brooklyn at the age of 6, grew up in one of the largest Jewish communities in the country, but only decided to become religious in Minnesota. And that is a very special thing. I wanted to give a special thank you to the Millers and the Weinbergs, because they have been essentially my home away from home. And one last story about my mother. So in 1992, we came from the USSR, Hanukkah time, December 15th. And as we're driving through Brooklyn, we immediately settle in Brighton Beach like all good Soviet Jews. But as we're driving through Brooklyn, she sees Trump Village, where these huge, huge apartment buildings. Each one has a light. Each apartment building, each window has a menorah. She started to cry. Jews openly expressing that they're Jewish, without fear, without having to hide matzah, without having to write to Kiev to find out one's Purim. It was a wonderful thing. And actually, I just found out that she no longer turns on her phone on Shabbos. Doesn't drive on Shabbos either. So each one of us makes a small difference, and I owe everything to my mother. Thank you very much.
Rish Kollel and Rabbi Cohen can come up and join me in presenting the Lomed Torah, the Torah Student Award, to Dr. Georgiy.
Chav Ches Iyar Tavshinai Vav, June 5th, 2016, Dr. Georgiy Teverovskiy. We are presenting you with the Torah Student Lomed Torah Award for embodying the principle of Limud Torah study. Even as you have pursued a professional career at the highest intellectual level, you have come to recognize that incorporating Torah study into your schedule is essential to your development as a Jew. You realize that learning lends purpose and meaning to everything else that you do and helps instill the timeless values of our heritage within you. It is our fervent wish that you continue on the path of Torah true living, and that Hashem bless you with further success, spiritual, professional, and personal. Chaim Simcha Gibber, Rosh Kollel, Rabbi Avigdor Goldberger, Menahel.